talked about this a little bit in my 3 Billboards review, but if you're going to make a movie, at least one that I'm going to enjoy with a sad ending, then this is how you got to do it. So I, Tonya tells the story, of course, of Tonya Harding, American figure skater, and her incident with American figure skater Nancy Kerrigan. And if you don't know what happened there, I really recommend you go and read something about it, watch something about it before you see the movie, because not only do you have to understand what happened, it's a great story, as is well told in the film, but you also kind of have to understand like the public reaction and feeling around it, because the film kind of twists that around, and instead of seeing Tonya Harding as this terrible person who plotted to have her biggest competitor injured, you see her as kind of someone who is just put in a bad situation and was the victim of poor circumstance, which is a huge turnaround from what is generally considered to be. When you're doing something like this, turning not a hated figure, but used to be a hated figure at least, but we've grown distant from that, but this figure into a sympathetic character, they do a great job in the beginning showing how she's treated by those around her, especially her mom in the beginning of her life. They see her treating her horribly. They have a terribly estranged relationship. Both of those characters do a great job, both of those actors really do a great job of showing the strain in that relationship, and how the mom feels like the tough love route is just the way to go, and that's what makes Tonya skate so well. And at points she seems like she's proven right, but then Tonya, sometimes her hatred for her mother gets in the way. But you feel for Tonya because you're like, wow, her mom's treating her terribly. And you also get to see just some of Tonya Harding's human moments, and anytime you see this hated character, you're reminded that they're like, oh yeah, they were a human. You see her fall in love, you see her just make there's some really humorous moments with her interactions with some of the other skaters and her skate coach, because Tonya Harding just doesn't care at all about being the pretty girl. She wants to be country, she wants to dance to rock music, and she wants to paint her nail different colors. And so it builds up the humor, which is great in building positive energy. You see the poor relationships, which is great in building up the sympathy. At least that's how I saw it, and that's how I reacted to it. And then she meets Jeff Galilei, who of course she eventually becomes married to, and you see how messed up that relationship was too, which only builds up more sympathy, because now like she's dealing with her mom, now she's dealing with this guy, and they throw in the humor that, Tonya Harding always says, oh, well, it wasn't my fault that this happened, it wasn't my fault, and then they explain how, some of it really was, but at the same time, you think about, well, maybe some of it was just because of how bad a relationship she was in and how that affected her, and so it ended up forcing me to feel really sympathetic towards her. And the film itself is set in a faux documentary style. It says at the beginning that it's based off interviews that were conducted with Jeff Galilei, her husband, and Tonya Harding herself. It says they're both wildly contrast each other on many points, and they use this to their advantage in the film, showing some things one way and then having one character say, well, that's not really how it happened, this is how it happened, and they'll show the same event in a completely different way, and that adds even more humor. They did that especially in the beginning, and every once in a while it'll cut to the actors portraying these characters just looking at the camera and addressing it like a documentary, which adds to kind of the feeling that, oh, well, maybe this is the true story, and that adds to more of that I should feel for Tonya Harding because this is the truth. But then again, they'll break off the truth because we don't really know, by having one character in the middle of a scene turn and face the camera and address it, which kind of, like, for me, I saw it as breaking the immersion, being like, oh yeah, this is not a scene that necessarily happened like this is just a scene that someone is saying happened like this. And the acting itself, I thought, was done very well. Margot Robbie was standout for me as Tonya Harding, and especially the moments during the figure skating where I really just believed how much she loved skating and how much that was everything that she wanted to do, especially after she lands her triple axel, her big move that's right there, and she just looks up to the sky and throws her arms out, and she just has a huge smile and just, like, yes, I feel the excitement, and it was great, and it made the ending especially more impactful for me. And then Sebastian Stan, who you will know as Bucky Barnes, also does a good job as Jeff Galooly, who is a terrible person, and you're never just quite sure where his mind is at, and he was done well, and everyone else did a great job as well there. His best friend was probably the funniest character in the movie, who's just this big guy who has all these delusions about being an FBI agent and just the ridiculous circumstances he sees himself in versus what's actually happening. And I really enjoyed how the film, after that first half, which is filled with a lot of humor and building sympathy with Tonya, builds up to the incident when usually this would be when we turn on Tonya. The movie has built it so that I was on board with her, and when she ended up getting charged with all this stuff, like, I was sad, and I was really feeling with her when she was in that courtroom and breaking down. That's why I think this movie was great. And just to review my shaky that doesn't really matter rating scale, it's bad, below solid, solid, above solid, and great. This is the first grade I've gotten, but I loved every second of it.